Hi guys, Mr. McLaughlin again, and I just wanted to go over, I realized I didn't do this the other day, just some quick how the year is going to go. Right now what you're getting into is what's called foundations. It's not technically part of the course. I mean, we're meant to teach it, it's in the syllabus, but the things that you see here won't specifically show up on the IB exam. But indirectly, I mean, you can't talk about anything in economics without what we're covering in foundations. But, so you know, if you go look at the syllabus, you won't actually see this, but it's there, I promise. Okay? The big bulk of the syllabus is devoted in the first year to microeconomics and macroeconomics. We'll talk about some of these differences later. I'm really hoping that I'm there by the time we start micro. But essentially microeconomics is studying a single market, the market for corn, or whatever, whereas macroeconomics is studying the economics of a whole country. It's important that you know that these two, the whole first year, is very much theoretical. And that sometimes can frustrate people. People keep saying, well, wait a minute, if this doesn't work in the real world, then why does it matter? Well, again, it's kind of like gathering your tools. Learning, okay, well, here's how it's meant to work, here's why it should work. And then in the second year, we do a lot more application. So I'll talk to you guys about that a lot. You'll keep hearing me say that, like, hey guys, this is really theoretical. You'll say, well, wait a minute, that doesn't seem to work. And I'll say, yeah, you're right. It's very much a theory, and we need to be comfortable with that. Okay? So micro will study the rest of semester 1, and then macro will take the bulk of semester 2. We will be working on some other things in there, your IAs and all that, but we'll worry about that when it's time. Something that's really important, especially since I'm not there. Your textbook, I pretty much go straight along with it. You know, it's a valuable resource. Likewise, almost anything I talk about. Today we're going to talk about the production possibilities curve. If you go into YouTube and Google, search production possibilities curve, you will literally find hundreds of videos about it. So, you know, go hear it from somebody else. Go hear it in a different way. Maybe make your own and see what people have to say about that. Okay? Alright. So, today we're going to introduce, by we I mean me, the first economic model that we're going to study. So you know, an economic model, which we also call a diagram or a graph, it's a very common tool that we use in economics. From it, we'll look at a diagram and we'll set it up with a couple of assumptions. We'll talk about the assumptions first. Like, for example, you know, I mean, just to make an assumption, I assume this is going to fall when I drop it. Oh, look at that, it did. We'll set it up with an assumption that we're reasonably sure of. So, for example, an economic assumption that we'll work with a lot is that when the price of something falls, people buy more of it. Well, okay, that's not always going to be true. But most of the time, when the price of something falls, people buy more of it. Okay? So we'll set up a diagram, we'll set up a model, and we'll use it to demonstrate or to extract an economic theory. Well, why? Why do we do it this way? Well, there's a few reasons, and there's many reasons. First of all, when we're talking about economics, for the most part, we're talking about people. We're talking about humans. And unfortunately, much to economists' chagrin, humans don't always act or react the way that you're predicting that they will. So, for example, if I were to cut the price of Louis Vuitton bags, would people buy more of them or less of them? Well, it's hard to say, right? Some people might buy Louis Vuitton bags because they're expensive and because it's a status symbol. So, one of the reasons we use diagrams is to kind of get rid of the messy little fact that humans don't always behave the way we'd like them to. Doesn't make the economic principle untrue because we recognize that. We say, yeah, humans are going to be complex, humans are going to do things we don't expect, but let's start with what we can expect first. Another reason that we use economic diagrams, sometimes it's a moral or ethical issue. You know, in macroeconomics, we'll talk a lot about wage and minimum wage. Well, maybe it's ethically wrong to just drop the minimum wage of a whole country just to do an experiment. In fact, that's probably pretty ethically wrong. So we can't really do that. Maybe it's not convenient. I doubt any, president or Congress or Parliament is going to say, oh yeah, let's run an economic experiment and cut the minimum wage. Okay? So a lot of it's about convenience, why we use diagrams, and then a lot of it is just to simplify things. When we talk about a diagram, there's this term that you'll hear a lot. I've written it in cursive because it's always in italics, and it's ceteris paribus. It's a Latin term, I suppose. C-E-T-E-R-I-S-P-A-R-I-B-U-S. Ceteris paribus. And all that means is that we're going to hold everything else the same. So when we're talking about something, so for example, the price of handbags, we're not going to compare Louis Vuitton handbags to knockoff Louis Vuitton bags. We're going to compare apples to apples, and that's it. Ceteris paribus allows us to change just one variable. So maybe it's, Louis Vuitton bags. I don't know why I keep seeing backpacks. Maybe it's Louis Vuitton bags in the fall, or selling the same exact bag, again ceteris paribus, in the spring. So when we use economic models, again, this is something you're going to see lots of them. Basically every theory that we talk about, we're going to explore it through the use of a model. Anyway, when we look at them, it's important to understand that they are mathematically based, and we'll use a lot of the same things you might use in a math course. Okay, the first one we're going to study is called the production possibilities curve. You will see, in fact, if you go do that YouTube search that I talked about, you might find other results where they call it the production possibilities frontier. You'll see that term from me in a second. This is just, some people use one, some people use the other. I like that one. When we look at the production possibilities curve, and you can't see it yet, we use it to explore the concepts of scarcity, right? That there's not enough of everything for everybody's unlimited wants. You looked up that term already, I hope. Because of that, we have to make choices. And because we make choices, we suffer what we call an opportunity cost. We need to talk about this for a little bit. This is a very important economic concept right here, opportunity cost. I wager that if you were to talk to, your parents or aunts or uncles or, people who hadn't taken an economics course in a while, if you asked them to start recalling what they remember about economics, they'd probably come up with production possibilities curve and opportunity cost. They're very fundamental economic ideas. When we talk about opportunity cost, we don't mean a physical, tangible cost. Like this morning I went over to the store and bought some coffee and a bagel and it cost me $2.67. I don't mean that. What I mean is, because I went to the store and bought coffee, I gave up the ability to buy coffee at a different store. Maybe the different store had a better bagel or whatever. So when we talk about opportunity cost, it's when you make a choice. I can do A or B, but not both. So by choosing to do A, I give up B. Okay? So in the zookeeping experiment or demonstration that you guys did, you ran into this a lot. Because I wanted to have African elephants, I gave up the ability perhaps to have as many monkeys as I wanted. Because I wanted to have more monkeys, I gave up the ability to have an African elephant, and instead I chose an Indian elephant. So the simple definition of opportunity cost, it's whatever you give up when you make a choice. Okay, another term that I introduced earlier in class, or you should have looked up, is factors of production. I will never write out factors of production again. It will always be FOP. It's one of those terms you use a lot. So, the assumption that we're going to make as we set up this model, we're building a model here, and I'm just giving you some background. The assumption we're going to make is that we take all of our land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. For now, I don't even care about you knowing those four. Just understand that these are the things we use to make the good or service. So, you have to use factors of production to make pens, to make whiteboard, to make watches, t-shirts, whatever. So, we're going to use 100% of those, all of them, to make one of two things. We're either going to make guns, or we're going to make butter. Now again, this gets back to that earlier assumption. We're going to simplify. Couldn't I make, peanut butter or butter? No, just butter. Couldn't I make guns, skateboards, and butter? No, we're just going to look at guns or butter. Again, the reason is to simplify. It doesn't change how it's going to work in the real world. It just makes it a little bit more clear in theory. Okay, so if we have 100% of factors of production, and if we use all of those to produce guns, let's say that we could produce 5. Typically we want to talk about a time period, so we'll say 5 a day. Likewise, if instead of that we made no guns, right, that's important to think about. If I'm using 100% of my factors of production for guns, how many am I using for butter? Well, none. 100% are here. Likewise, if I devote 100% of my factors of production to butter, maybe I can make 20 sticks of butter a day. 20 kilos of butter, whatever you want to call it. We mix a little math in here, so we can say, therefore, because this equals that or that, 5 guns equals 20 butter. That's important because it allows us to actually calculate what the opportunity cost is. When we talk about opportunity cost, we don't want to talk about the opportunity cost of making 5 guns. You can, but it's a little bit messy. So you could say the opportunity cost of making 5 guns, when I choose to make 5 guns, I give up 20 butter. It's better to talk about it where one of the choices is in 1 unit. Okay, so it's better to say, what is the opportunity cost not of making 5, but of making 1 gun? So, we can just do a little math here. We can say 5 guns equals 20 butter. We can put 5 over 20, reduce to 1 out of 4, and then we can say the opportunity cost of making 1 gun is 4 butter.